Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into why the months of July, August, and September 2025 are absolutely critical for your monthly benefit checks. Whether you're getting Social Security retirement, disability, SSDI, survivor benefits, spousal benefits, SSI, or even VA benefits. These 3 months are always important. But this year, 2025, they're shaping up to be a game changer. Why? Because we're living in some wild economic times, and what's happening right now could directly impact your wallet. Stick with me as I break it all down, and make sure to drop your questions in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. Let's get started. So, why are these 3 months, July, August, and September, so crucial? It all comes down to one word: inflation. If there's one thing we've all been dealing with this year, it's uncertainty. I mean, can we just say it together? Uncertainty. From the new tariffs rolled out earlier this year to all the economic shifts we've seen, 2025 has been a roller coaster. And now, as we're speeding toward the second half of the year, a lot of economists are sounding the alarm about a possible recession. Some are even saying we might get official confirmation of a major recession in the coming months. That's a big deal, and it's why these 3 months are so pivotal for your benefits. Here's the key thing to understand. The raise you get on your monthly Social Security benefits every year, known as the Cost of Living Adjustment or COLA, is based on inflation data from July, August, and September. That's right. The third quarter of the year is when the government collects the numbers that decide how much extra cash you'll see in your check starting in January 2026. So, as soon as the calendar flips to July 1st, it's game on. Every piece of inflation data that comes out over these 3 months will directly determine your COLA for next year. And let me tell you, with everything going on economically, this year's data could be a wild card. Let's talk about what we've seen so far in 2025. Inflation has been all over the place. Those tariffs I mentioned, they've caused businesses to pre-buy supplies, driving up demand, and you guessed it, prices. A couple months ago, I shared projections from economists suggesting we could see inflation hit around 4% this year. And when might that spike show up? You got it. Likely in the next few months, especially during the summer. Why? Summer is naturally an inflationary time. People are out traveling, kids are out of school, families are hitting the road for vacations, firing up the grill for barbecues. It all adds up. More spending means more demand, which pushes prices higher. It's not just summer vibes, though. The end of the year, around a holiday shopping season, is another inflationary hotspot. So, July, August, and September are when we'll get the hard data that sets your 2026 COLA. Now, here's where things get really interesting. If we do get confirmation of a recession in the second half of 2025, and a lot of experts are betting on it, what happens next? During recessions, governments often print money to stimulate the economy. And what does money printing do? It fuels inflation. More money floating around means prices go up, and that could push the inflation numbers for these 3 months even higher. A higher inflation rate means a bigger COLA for 2026, which could be a lifeline for a lot of you relying on those monthly checks. But we won't know the official COLA number until mid-October, when the September inflation data drops. I don't have the exact date off the top of my head, but it's usually around the middle of the month. Mark your calendars. So why does this matter so much? Because the COLA is your only guaranteed raise each year unless Congress passes some new legislation to boost benefits. And let's be honest, that's not exactly a sure bet. The COLA doesn't need to go through the whole congressional song and dance. It's automatic, based on those inflation numbers. But with inflation being so unpredictable this year, we need to keep a close eye on the data. The inflation report we get in July will actually cover June, so it won't count toward the COLA, but it'll give us a sense of the trend. Then in August, we'll get July's numbers, and that's when the COLA calculation officially kicks off. By October, we'll have the full picture. Now, I know 2026 feels like it's a lifetime away, but trust me, these 3 months are setting the stage for your financial future. If inflation spikes, your COLA could be higher, which is great news for your checks. But if the economy takes a nosedive and inflation doesn't behave as expected, it could mean a smaller raise. Either way, We're in for an interesting ride, and I'll be here keeping you updated with every new piece of data that comes out. Speaking of navigating these uncertain times, if you're turning 65, retiring, or moving across state or county lines, I've got a resource for you. See that phone number on the screen? Write it down. Take a screenshot. Do whatever you gotta do. That number connects you to a dedicated team of Medicare advisors who can help you find the best Medicare supplement or Medigap plan for your needs. They've got access to over 20,000 plans nationwide and will do the heavy lifting to find you the best coverage at the best price. I'm talking about plans that let you see the doctors and providers you want with the prescription coverage you need. Thousands of you in this community have already called them and saved a ton of money, some in just a 10-minute phone call. It's 100% free, no strings attached. So give them a call. You'll thank me later. And here's a quick favor. If you know someone, friends, family, neighbors, co-workers, who could benefit from this, share that number with them. They'll appreciate it, and you'll be their hero. Also, hit that share button below to spread this video to anyone who needs to know about their benefits. If you're new here, please subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss our next update. We got over 5,000 videos in the library. Check out the popular ones linked below or popping up on your screen. Before I wrap up, let's talk action steps. Keep an eye on the news for inflation updates, especially in August when we get July's numbers. If you're on Social Security or any benefits, start planning now for how a bigger or smaller COLA might affect your budget in 2026. And if you're feeling overwhelmed by all this uncertainty, that Medicare team I mentioned can help you lock in a plan that gives you peace of mind. All right, that's it for today. Drop your questions in the comments and let me know what you're thinking about this crazy economic year. Hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video or live stream. Have an awesome day, and thanks for being here.
Well, Donald Trump just gave Social Security a $1 trillion gift, and I don't think he realizes it. We're going to talk about that today. And if you're receiving Social Security benefits, retirement, survivor, or disability benefits, this definitely affects you. It's going to affect your check in the future. If you're about to file for any of those benefits, this also affects you as well. This is an important update with some new information that has just come out in the last couple of days, so we're going to discuss how that affects your Social Security. My name is Ed Weir. I ran the third busiest Social Security office in the country, and in my semi-retirement, I'm helping you all make sure you get all the benefits you are eligible for, entitled to, paid into, and earned. Let's talk about Trump's campaign promises, specifically the ones focused on Social Security. Some of the things that would have directly affected Social Security are related to mass immigration, specifically kicking undocumented immigrants out of the country. As we all know, undocumented immigrants pay into taxes, including Social Security taxes. They work under fake Social Security numbers or ITINs. We're even talking about people who were in the country legally for a while, like college students who come over to study, stay, get married, and then get divorced but remain. There are many reasons people are in the country when they're not supposed to be, but they still have a Social Security number, fake or real, and they pay into the system. All the estimates are that they pay over $30 billion a year into Social Security. Because they're not in the country legally, they will never get that money back. I don't care who tells you different. They will not get retirement benefits, disability benefits, survivor benefits, spouse benefits, or Medicare. They are not eligible to get Medicaid in most cases, though some states provide health insurance to undocumented people, but that's not for Medicaid funds. There's an exception for emergencies, of course, as emergency rooms don't check your papers. So, over $30 billion is essentially donated to Social Security every year. If one of these individuals decides to walk into a Social Security office at age 62, 65, or 67, they have to prove they are in this country legally. I've taken hundreds of thousands of Social Security claims, and I can tell you, they must show proof. If you're a U.S. citizen, you have your birth certificate. If you're not born in the United States, you need a certificate of naturalization or a green card. The Social Security employee processes that through a system called SAVE, which verifies the document's validity. If you don't have any of that, you aren't getting anything. It's cut and dry. All those billions of dollars paid into Social Security are a donation that helps the trust fund. If there were to be a mass deportation of these undocumented immigrants, That would have taken $30 billion out of the Social Security Administration's incoming revenue to the trust fund every single year. Over 10 years, that's $300 billion. The other campaign promise he made was no taxes on Social Security benefits. This isn't happening in the current proposal, but if it had passed, that would be another significant hit. Currently, about 50% of people don't even pay taxes on their Social Security benefits anyway because they are in a lower income bracket. So, this wouldn't affect the people who really need the money most. But if that tax were eliminated, it would take about another $60 billion out of the Social Security Trust Fund on a yearly basis. The taxes people pay on their benefits go to the IRS, which then turns that money over to Social Security, and it goes into the trust fund. So, basically, Trump's campaign plan, if it had passed, would have taken about $1 trillion over 10 years out of the Social Security Trust Fund. That would have affected everyone's benefits. Right now, we are looking at cuts to Social Security around 2034. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget has a graph showing this. Because our politicians haven't been forced to solve the trust fund depletion over the last few decades, it's our fault and their fault. We've had 30 years to fix this, but we've failed. As a result, we're going to get cuts because the trust fund is going to run out. Right now, a certain amount of money comes into Social Security, and a larger amount goes out. The trust fund, our savings, covers that gap. It's just like a household budget. If you have less money coming in than going out, you have to dip into your savings. Social Security is dipping into its savings, called the trust fund. People often say the trust fund is fake money, but if you're receiving Social Security, about 8% of your check comes from that trust fund. That trust fund is being depleted, and as of right now, it's projected to be fully depleted by 2034. When that happens, we're going to get a 20% cut because there's no more savings. If Trump had fulfilled his campaign promises on these issues, that would have cut $1 trillion out, depleting the trust fund about 3 or 4 years earlier and likely leading to steeper cuts, perhaps around 30%. But fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your perspective, he didn't. He changed his tune in the last couple of days. You probably saw the video about his new policy. In a recent statement, he addressed farmers and the hotel and leisure business. He said we're not targeting them. In fact, he noted that farmers are being hurt badly because they have good workers who have been with them for 20 years. They may not be citizens, but they've been great workers. He said we have to do something about that because we can't take all their people and send them back. He emphasized using common sense immigration reform. Then, he came out with a Truth Social post, clarifying that the problem isn't undocumented immigrants in general, but those in particular states or cities he doesn't like. He's going to focus on what he called Democratic power centers, like Los Angeles, New York, and Chicago. The implication is that there will be a mass exodus out of those cities. But where will they go? They're not going to go back to their country. They're just going to go to other cities, likely more Republican-leaning areas. They're still going to be in the country, and they're still going to pay into Social Security. So, this trillion-dollar gift is the preservation of that income stream for the trust fund. Now, someone might say I should talk about Social Security and not politics. We need to understand the difference between politics and partisanship. I talk about politics, which is the process of governing, making decisions on public issues, and involves debate, negotiation, and compromise. Partisanship, on the other hand, is rigid loyalty to a political party over compromise, focusing on winning and defeating the other side, regardless of the issue. I don't do partisanship here. If a president does something good for Social Security, I'll say so. It's great that President Trump has said he's not going to touch Social Security, which is a good thing because many congressional Republicans want to raise the retirement age and cut benefits. However, on the other side, Social Security needs to be touched. It needs to be fixed, because if it's not, the trust fund will run out, and we'll all face cuts. I, and most viewers on my channel, believe that raising the retirement age is not the way to do it. There are so many other ways. Speaking of complexities, many people face challenges with the system, like overpayments. I recently received a question from someone who got an overpayment letter and wants to negotiate a lower repayment than the 50% stated. The answer is yes, 100%. The policy on this has been changing rapidly. In March, the letter would have said 10%, but after March 27th, it said 100%. Now, it's 50%. You can request a payment plan of up to 60 months, a new policy that came about after a 60 minutes expose on overpayments. You can contact Social Security, and if you agree with the overpayment, you can set up a plan over the phone. It's much easier than it was a year ago. Another common concern is the use of illegal Social Security numbers. People wonder if those using these numbers can illegally obtain benefits in the future. The answer is no, because they would have to provide valid identification in that person's name to prove legal status. This is one of the many reasons I tell everyone to set up a My Social Security account at SSA.gov. If someone is working under your number, those earnings will show up on your record. While it might temporarily increase your projected benefit, once they are caught, those earnings will be removed, and you'll be told you were overpaid and have to pay that money back. It's crucial to check your earnings record regularly, especially for young people, as mistakes are much harder to fix decades later. The core problem with the trust fund's future isn't that money was stolen, as some myths suggest. Every penny is accounted for in the annual Social Security Trustees Report. The money is held in U.S. Treasury bonds, the safest investment in the world. The real problem is that our funding mechanism is outdated. If you make millions or billions of dollars, you're not paying Social Security tax like the rest of us. Regular folks pay FICA tax on every dollar they make, but once you earn over the annual cap, around $176,100, you stop paying into Social Security for the year. More and more wealth is concentrated at the top, meaning a larger portion of the nation's income is not subject to Social Security tax. If we simply eliminated that cap, the system would be funded for decades, and we could even increase benefits for those who are struggling. The system's rules on family benefits are also incredibly complex, leading many to lose out on money they've earned. For example, many people don't know about independently entitled divorced spouse benefits. If you're divorced, your ex-spouse is at least 62, and you were married for 10 years and have been divorced for 2, you can claim benefits on their record even if they haven't filed for benefits yet. So many people think they have to wait for their ex to file, and they lose years of payments they are entitled to. I always tell people to take the Social Security policy reference with them to the office to ensure they get the correct information, as even frontline staff are not always aware of this rule. For those on disability, there are also common misunderstandings. You can receive Social Security Disability, SSDI, and also apply for spousal or survivor benefits if you're eligible. Many are afraid to do this, thinking it will jeopardize their disability status or their Medicare. That's incorrect. Your disability benefit continues, you just get the extra money from the other benefit, and your Medicare remains intact because your disability entitlement continues. Let's look at some specific situations. One person asked if their benefits will increase if they continue working after starting to collect Social Security. The answer is possibly. Social Security calculates your benefit based on your highest 35 years of earnings. Each year you work, the system automatically checks if that year's earnings are higher than one of your previous 35 years. If so, it kicks out the lowest year, adds the new higher year, and recalculates your benefit. Your check will go up automatically, including back pay to January of that year. Another question came from a woman who is 62 and divorced. Her first husband passed away, she remarried, and is now divorced again. She wants to know if she can get survivor benefits from her first husband. The answer is yes. Since she is now single, she can claim survivor benefits on her deceased ex-spouse record. She mentioned she receives a pension from the Texas Retirement System, TRS. Previously, the government pension offset, GPO, would have likely wiped out any Social Security survivor benefit. However, with the recent passage of the Social Security Fairness Act, GPO and the Windfall Elimination Provision, WEP, no longer apply, so she is now likely eligible. She should make an appointment with a claims specialist to find out the exact benefit amount and decide if it's better to take it now at a reduced rate or wait until her full retirement age to get 100%. One viewer on disability, receiving about $937 a month, had a child and was told she couldn't get benefits for her child. This is likely due to the family maximum. Based on a person's earnings record, there's a maximum amount that can be paid out to the entire family. If her benefit is already at or near the family maximum, there might not be any additional money available for a child's benefit. However, she was given incorrect and unprofessional information, so she did the right thing by formally filing an application. It's taking a long time, so she should contact her congressional representative to get a fire lit under the agency to make a decision. If it turns out her child is eligible, she should demand back pay to the date she first inquired, since she was given misinformation. Right now, millions of Americans are deeply concerned about the future of their food stamps and EBT benefits, programs they rely on to feed themselves and their families. This is a critical issue because, according to a recent poll, most Americans, regardless of political affiliation, want funding for programs like Medicaid and food stamps to be either maintained or increased, not cut. With the cost of food continuing to climb, this support is more vital than ever. Today, we're going to break down what's happening, what the polls are telling us, and what the future might hold under a potential Trump administration. First, let's look at the numbers from a recent AP poll. It asked whether the U.S. government is spending too little, about the right amount, or too much on these programs. For food and nutrition assistance, a staggering 45% of all U.S. adults said the government is spending too little. When you break that down by party, 65% of Democrats and 59% of independents feel this way. On the other hand, 46% of Republicans believe the government is spending too much on food stamps. This stark partisan divide is at the heart of the current political battle. The Republican position, particularly from what we're hearing from the Trump administration's allies in Congress, is that while there's too much money going out, the bigger issue is that it isn't helping the right people in the right way. Their solution is to expand work requirements. Right now, there's a major push to require able-bodied adults without dependents to work in order to receive food stamps and Medicaid, and they want to raise the age for this requirement all the way up to 64. Why 64? The logic, according to proponents, is that at age 65, you can retire and begin claiming Social Security. Therefore, they argue, an able-bodied adult should be expected to work until they are eligible for retirement benefits. Currently, the work requirement for so-called able-bodied adults without dependents goes up to age 54. The GOP proposal would raise that threshold by 10 years, to age 64. This single change would kick a significant number of people off the food stamp program. House Speaker Mike Johnson has called tying federal aid to work common sense, suggesting it encourages people to find jobs. The proposal would mean that millions of low-income Americans would face new reporting burdens. They would have to prove they are working, volunteering, or enrolled in an educational or training program to qualify for health care or food assistance. Republican lawmakers argue this is necessary to prevent people from gaming the system and to push them toward employment. This has been a long-standing Republican principle. They don't want to tax hard-working Americans just to give money to people they believe don't want to work. So, if you are, say, 58 years old, not currently working but receiving benefits, you could see these changes impact you very soon. Another important development is the summer EBT program, which is already in effect in many states. This program provides families with an additional $120 per eligible child for the summer months. To be clear, this isn't for every family with children. Eligibility is tied to participation in other programs like SNAP or if your child attends a school that offers a national school lunch or breakfast program. If you qualify, you're automatically enrolled. This $120 is a one-time payment meant to be used for groceries like fruits, vegetables, meat, and bread. However, you can't use it for hot foods, pet food, or household items, and if you don't use the money, you lose it. A significant trend we're seeing alongside this is a push by more and more states to restrict what can be purchased with EBT funds. Specifically, many states are petitioning to ban the purchase of soda and sugary snack foods. Nebraska was the first state to have its waiver approved, and its ban went into effect at the beginning of this year. Indiana, Iowa, and West Virginia have also had waivers approved for this spring, meaning you can no longer buy soda, candy, or energy drinks with an EBT card in those states. Arkansas, Idaho, and Utah are also on that list, with their bans scheduled to start in January 2026. Other states like Texas, Kansas, and Colorado have pending legislation or have requested similar waivers. If you live in one of these states, be aware that your food choices with EBT may soon become more restricted. So, what does this all mean? We are absolutely going to see changes to SNAP benefits. The stated goal from Republicans isn't just to cut spending, but to better target aid to those most in need. They argue the government can't afford to keep increasing the amount of money spent on SNAP to keep up with rising food costs. Instead, their strategy is to reduce the number of people who qualify, particularly able-bodied adults who they believe can and should work. This philosophy will almost certainly be a cornerstone of any major budget bill. We don't know the exact details yet, But we can expect that the proposals we see today may be just the beginning, with more changes likely coming in the next couple of weeks. As we get more information, I promise to bring you all the latest updates. Learn about recent policy changes affecting farmers and hospitality workers. Understand the implications for your Social Security check and the broader economy. Script, 800 words. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a topic that's been sparking a lot of questions: undocumented immigrants and their impact on Social Security. Now, you might be wondering why I'm talking about this on a channel focused on Social Security, Medicare, and retirement benefits. Stick with me, it's all connected, and it's critical for protecting the benefits you've earned. Let's start with the big picture. Undocumented immigrants pay over $30 billion annually into Social Security and Medicare through payroll taxes. That's right, $30 billion. But here's the kicker: unless they become legal residents, they'll never see a dime of that money. It's essentially a massive donation to the system that funds your benefits. Whether you support their presence in the U.S. or not, this is the reality, and it's worth understanding how it affects you. Some of you might be thinking, how are they paying into Social Security? Great question. Many undocumented workers use an individual taxpayer identification number, or ITIN, issued by the IRS since 1996. This allows them to pay federal, state, and payroll taxes, including the 6.2% for Social Security and 1.45% for Medicare, just like any other worker. Their employers also chip in, and in total, undocumented immigrants contribute about $100 billion in taxes each year. That's a significant boost to our economy and the Social Security Trust Fund. Now, let's address the elephant in the room: recent policy shifts. You may have heard about a certain campaign built on promises of mass deportations. But recently, there's been a change in tone, particularly for industries like farming, hotels, and restaurants. The argument is that these sectors rely heavily on undocumented workers who've been there for decades, doing jobs that are tough to fill. For example, farmers can't afford to lose their workforce, people who've worked their fields for 20 years, because replacing them could mean hiring less desirable workers or facing labor shortages. This shift acknowledges the economic reality. These workers keep our grocery prices low and our hospitality industry running. But what happens if mass deportations do occur? The Social Security Administration's latest trustees report warns that the trust fund could deplete a year earlier than expected, around 2034, leading to benefit cuts of about 19 to 20%. If those $30 billion in contributions from undocumented workers vanish, those cuts could climb to 21 to 23%. That's a direct hit to your Social Security check. Plus, if companies have to pay higher wages to attract legal workers, expect prices for everything from produce to hotel stays to rise, fueling inflation. Let's clear up another misconception: undocumented immigrants can't access Social Security, Medicare, or federal Medicaid. Some states, like California, have used their own funds to provide health coverage for undocumented residents because it's cheaper than covering emergency room visits. But federal benefits? Off-limits unless you're a legal resident. Hospitals often eat the cost of emergency care for undocumented individuals, which can strain local healthcare systems. I also want to touch on sanctuary cities, a term that gets thrown around a lot. These are places that don't actively report undocumented immigrants to ICE for minor issues, like a fender bender. Studies show this makes communities safer because people aren't afraid to cooperate with police or report crimes. It's not about ignoring laws, it's about practical community safety. Now, with talk of sanctuary farms, or sanctuary hotels, we're seeing a pragmatic approach to keeping essential industries afloat. So, what's the takeaway? Undocumented immigrants are here, working, and paying into systems that benefit all of us. Policies around them are shifting, and those changes could affect your Social Security and the cost of living. My mission in semi-retirement is to help you secure the benefits you're entitled to and protect them from cuts. That's why this matters. Before I wrap up, let's answer a quick viewer question about Social Security. Debbie asked about a letter saying she doesn't qualify under her own record but applied under her spouse's. If you didn't work 40 quarters, 10 years, you won't qualify for benefits on your own record. But you can still get spousal benefits, which sounds like what's happening here. If you're still confused, Debbie, check your documentation or call the SSA's 800 number to confirm your status. If you want to dive deeper, head to my website, mygovexpert.com, for resources on disability, trial work periods, and more. Keep sending your questions, and let's keep this community strong, helping each other and spreading the word about protecting our benefits. Until next time, stay informed and keep smiling. Below is a 700-word conclusion script that summarizes the key points from the provided transcript and the earlier 800-word script, focusing on the impact of undocumented immigrants on Social Security, recent policy shifts, and their broader implications. Undocumented immigrants in our Social Security system and what recent policy changes mean for you. My mission here, as always, is to help you understand and protect the benefits you've earned through Social Security, Medicare, and beyond. So, let's tie it all together and make sense of why this matters for your wallet and our country's future. Undocumented immigrants contribute over $30 billion every year to Social Security and Medicare through payroll taxes. That's not pocket change. It's a massive boost to the trust fund that pays for your retirement, disability, and healthcare benefits. They do this through something called an ITIN, an IRS-issued number that lets them pay federal, state, and payroll taxes, including the 6.2% for Social Security and 1.45% for Medicare. In total, their tax contributions hit around $100 billion annually. But here's the reality. Unless they become legal residents, 99% of them will never see a penny of those Social Security or Medicare benefits. That's essentially a $30 billion donation to the system we all rely on. Now, you might be thinking, why does this matter to me? Well, it's simple. The Social Security Trust Fund is under pressure. The latest trustees report says it could run dry by 2034, a year earlier than expected, which would mean 19 to 20% cuts to your benefits. If we lose those $30 billion in contributions from undocumented workers, say, through mass deportations, those cuts could climb to 21 to 23%. That's a bigger hit to your monthly check. Whether you support undocumented immigrants being here or not,
Hey folks, welcome back. Today we're diving into something super important for anyone planning their retirement, the 5 Social Security benefits you unlock when you hit your full retirement age. Most people think FRA just means getting your full Social Security check, but there's so much more to it. I'm going to break down all 5 benefits in a way that's easy to understand so you can make the most of your retirement planning. Let's get started. First, let's talk about what full retirement age actually is. For most of you watching in 2025, your FRA is either 66 years and 10 months if you were born in 1959 or 67 if you were born in 1960 or later. For completeness, here's the full schedule. If you were born in 1954 or earlier, your FRA was 66. 1955, it's 66 and 2 months. 1956, 66 and 4 months. 1957, 66 and 6 months. 1958, 66 and 8 months. And 1959, 66 and 10 months. For anyone born 1960 or later, it's 67. For this article, we'll assume FRA is 67, but the concepts apply across the board with slight variations. Benefit number 1, full Social Security payment. The benefit everyone knows about is getting 100% of your Social Security payment at FRA. If you claim Social Security early, say at 62, your payment gets slashed by 30%, so you're only getting 70% of what you're entitled to. Claim at 63, it's 75%. At 64, 80%. At 65, about 86.67%, and at 66, 93.33%. But hit FRA at 67 and you get the full 100%. Wait even longer and you earn delayed retirement credits, 108% at 68, 116% at 69, and a whopping 124% at 70. That's a nice boost if you can afford to wait, but the key here is that FRA unlocks your full unreduced payment. No discounts, just the amount you've earned based on your work history. Benefit number 2, no more earnings test. Next up is a game changer for anyone who wants to keep working. The earnings test goes away at FRA. Before you hit FRA, if you're collecting Social Security and working, the Social Security Administration can claw back some of your benefits if you earn too much. In 2025, if you're not yet at FRA, the earnings limit is $23,400. For every $2 you earn over that, you give back $1 in benefits. In the year you reach FRA, the limit jumps to $62,160, and for every $3 over, you give back $1. But once you hit FRA, poof, the earnings test disappears. You can earn $1 million, $1 billion, whatever the market pays you, and your Social Security check stays untouched. This is huge for what I call the suddenly retired group, folks who didn't plan to retire but got laid off or downsized at, say, 62 or 63. They start Social Security thinking they're done working, but then a great job offer comes along, maybe with solid health insurance, which is pricey before Medicare kicks in at 65. Suddenly, they're working again while collecting benefits. Before FRA, they'd have to watch their earnings or risk losing benefits. After FRA, they can work as much as they want without penalty. This happens more often than you think, and it's a big relief for those who need or want to keep earning. Benefit number 3, voluntary suspension of benefits. Here's a lesser-known gem. At FRA, you can voluntarily suspend your Social Security payments to let them grow. Back before 2016, there was a strategy where you could file for benefits, suspend them, and claim spousal benefits instead. That's gone now, but you can still suspend your payments at FRA to earn delayed retirement credits. Let's say you started Social Security early at 62 and got a reduced 70% payment. A few years into retirement, you realize you want a bigger check. At FRA, 67 for this example, you can pause your benefits and they'll grow by 8% per year until age 70. That could bump your payment from 70% to about 86.8% of your original full benefit. Not 124% of the full benefit, but 124% of your reduced base. You can suspend for as little as a month or up to 3 years, giving you flexibility to boost your income later in retirement. Benefit number 4, full survivor benefits. The fourth benefit involves survivor benefits, and this one's about the surviving spouse's age. If your spouse passes away, the survivor benefit you can claim depends on 2 things: the deceased Social Security payment, what they were getting or entitled to, and when you, the survivor, claim the benefit. If you claim survivor benefits before your FRA, your payment gets reduced. But if you wait until your FRA, you get the maximum survivor benefit possible. The exact amount is complex based on the deceased's benefit and other factors, but waiting until FRA ensures you're not leaving money on the table. For example, a surviving spouse claiming at 60 might get a reduced benefit, while waiting until 67 could mean a significantly larger check. Check out detailed resources on the SSA website for the full calculation. Benefit number 5, maximum spousal benefits. Finally, FRA unlocks the maximum spousal benefit. If you're married, you can claim a spousal benefit based on your partner's social record, but it's tied to your FRA, not theirs. The primary insured, the spouse with the higher benefit, must file for their benefits first. If you claim spousal benefits early, say at 62, you get just 32.5% of their primary insurance amount. At 63, it's 35%. At 64, 37.5%. At 65, 41.67%. At 66, 45.83%. But at FRA, 67, you get the full 50%, the maximum possible. Waiting beyond FRA doesn't increase it further, so 67 is the sweet spot. This is a big deal for couples where one spouse has a lower earning record, as it can significantly boost household income. Wrapping it up. So there you have it. 5 Social Security benefits unlocked at full retirement age. Your full payment, no earnings test, the ability to suspend benefits, maximum survivor benefits, and maximum spousal benefits. These can make a huge difference in your retirement planning, whether you're working, adjusting your benefits, or planning for your spouse. What's your strategy for claiming Social Security? Drop your thoughts below and let's keep the conversation going. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Hey there, folks. It's June 27, 2025, and we're just 1 week away from the big July 4th deadline when Congress hopes to pass President Trump's one big, beautiful bill. This massive piece of legislation has been making waves, especially for its promise of no taxes on tips and overtime pay. Sounds like a dream come true for hardworking Americans, right? More money in your pocket every payday. But hold on, millions of people are starting to feel misled, even furious about what this bill actually means. Today, we're diving into the details, breaking down why some folks are upset, and figuring out what this could mean for you and me moving forward. Let's start with the hype. The White House has been touting this bill as a game changer, saying it'll put more money in our pockets every day. That's the kind of relief millions of Americans are praying for, especially those who rely on tips or grind out extra hours for overtime pay. Imagine keeping every dollar of your tips as a server, or not losing a chunk of your overtime check to taxes. Sounds amazing, doesn't it? But here's where things get tricky, and it's causing a lot of frustration. I got a comment from someone last week that really sums up the excitement and the confusion. They wrote, "I'm so ready for this to begin. I make $28 an hour and work 10 to 15 hours of overtime a week. Once this kicks in, I only pay taxes on my regular $28 an hour, and the overtime at $42 an hour is tax-free. That's an extra $140 a week." At first glance, that math checks out. Overtime pay is typically time and a half, so $28 becomes $42 for those extra hours. Not bad. But here's what I told them. You're partially right, but there's a catch. And that catch is what's got people riled up. The no tax on tips and overtime promise only applies to federal income tax. You're still on the hook for Social Security and Medicare taxes, which are 6.2% and 1.45% respectively, from both you and your employer. That's a combined 15.3% taken out of your overtime or tips before you see a dime. So for that $140 in overtime pay, you're still losing about $22 to those payroll taxes. When I explained this, the person wasn't happy. They dropped some colorful language because they thought no tax meant no tax at all. And they're not alone. Many folks feel like the bill was sold as a bigger deal than it actually is. The truth is, this bill hasn't even passed yet. It cleared the House on May 22, 2025 by a razor-thin 217 to 215 vote, but it still needs Senate approval and Trump's signature. Until that happens, we don't know the final details. What we do know is that the current plan exempts tips and overtime from federal income tax through 2028. But Social Security and Medicare taxes, also known as FICA taxes, stay in place. That's a significant chunk of change, and it's not going away. For someone like our $28 an hour worker, the relief is real, but not as massive as they hoped. Instead of an extra $140 a week, it's more like $118 after FICA taxes. Still nice, but not the windfall they expected. Now, let's talk about the tipped workers, because there's another layer of controversy brewing. Some restaurants and servers are actually opposing this no tax on tips idea. You'd think they'd be thrilled, but an Associated Press article pointed out that some in the restaurant industry think it helps too few people and masks bigger issues with how tipped workers are paid. For example, a bartender in Austin, Texas, said the policy doesn't help kitchen staff, who often don't get tips and are paid the least. That's a fair point. Cooks and dishwashers work just as hard, but might not see a dime of this tax break. I got another comment that drives this home. Someone from a restaurant in downtown Chicago wrote, "I've been hearing about no taxes on tips starting soon, and I was super excited because we get good nightly tips. But my manager told the kitchen staff they'll get a raise when this goes into effect, and only wait staff will get tips. They say it's to avoid making customers feel pressured to tip. I've been in the industry long enough to know this sounds like they'll pay waitstaff less, relying on tips to make up the difference." This person didn't say if they were kitchen staff or a server, but the concern is clear. Restaurants might use this tax break as an excuse to cut base wages for tipped workers. That's a real worry. If tips are tax-free, at least for income tax, employers might think, hey, they're keeping more of their tips, so we can pay them less up front. It's happened before. Restaurants have been known to skimp on wages because tips supposedly make up for it. The fear is that this policy could make that worse, leaving servers and bartenders with less predictable income. Plus, about 40% of tipped workers earn so little they don't pay federal income tax anyway, so this break wouldn't help them much. For higher-earning tipped workers, like those making $60,000 a year, the tax break could be a bigger deal, but it's not the lifeline for low-wage workers it's been sold as. There's also confusion about how this tax break will work. One possibility is that you'll still pay income tax on tips and overtime upfront, but get a refund when you file your taxes. Another is that the income tax is simply not withheld from those earnings at all. Either way, you're still paying Social Security and Medicare taxes, and that's where the disconnect lies. People heard no tax and thought it meant all taxes, not just income tax. This misunderstanding is fueling a lot of the anger out there. I was talking to a friend in construction who pays his workers overtime, and he was excited about this bill. But I warned him, if you don't withhold FICA taxes on overtime pay, thinking it's all tax-free, the IRS could come knocking next year saying, you owe us. That's a headache nobody wants. The Tax Foundation estimates this policy could cost the government $40 billion for tips and $124 billion through 2028. So the IRS will be watching closely to ensure those payroll taxes are paid. So, is this no tax on tips and overtime plan a good move? It's a mixed bag. For workers who earn significant tips or overtime, it's a nice boost, maybe $1,400 to $1,750 a year, according to the White House. But it's not the full relief people expected, and it could lead to employers gaming the system by cutting wages or restructuring pay. Plus, it's temporary, expiring in 2028, which means we might be fighting over this again just as Trump's term ends. What do you think? Is this a solid win for workers, or are businesses going to take advantage? Drop your thoughts below and let's keep the conversation going. Thanks for sticking with me, and I'll catch you in the next one.